Okay. So this is Candace Stewart. Welcome to my podcast, Trade Secrets. With me today is one of my favorite people, which I always say. This is Ellis Sorkin, and who is for real. It's one of my good friends in real life. Wait, is there another life besides real life? Anyway, one of the things we talk about on the podcast, and one of the purpose of the podcast is really just for me to talk to my friends. But really, it's also to see how people end up in the career that they're in, and sort of note the journey along the way, how people get to where they get, and there's no one way to achieve your goal or end up where you want to be. But Ellis Sorkin is a really cool story, and we're going to start with the basics. Ellis, where were you born?
Here, L.A.
In the studio?
In the city. Yeah, no, it's right here in town.
What part of L.A.? What part of town?
Cedars-Sinai.
Really? Like in Beverly Hills?
Yeah, I don't even think it's the same one that I was born in because I'm so friggin' old.
Ellis, a good Jewish boy, born at Cedars-Sinai.
Exactly, yeah, so I don't...
Back then, you could only have Jewish babies at Cedars.
And I wouldn't know if I was at that one or not because I was...
You were just born.
Just born, I just know that it was there.
Where did you grow up? What part of town?
In the Valley.
Oh, yeah, where?
Yeah, started when I was a little kid in Mission Hills.
Oh, I know where that is.
And then we moved when I was in elementary, like in first grade, I want to say, to Sherman Oaks.
Oh, nice. Yeah. Stepping up, moving on up.
Yeah, my dad was...
what did your dad do?
He was in the insurance business, and he created a niche. He became the insurance man for the music business.
And currently that still exists today. My friend Joe Monterello, who just retired, and now Tracy Woronovsky, who we love,
right,
is the
doing
studio,
that too. Yeah, he started that.
Studio insurance.
He started that, but he started it in a big way.
Dude, and I'm sure at the time it was hard to convince the companies he worked for the validity and the risk, or lack of risk.
Yeah.
Maybe. Or not.
Yeah. No, but
therein of
he,
having a studio.
He hooked up with it, which will be part of my story of the backing at A&M.
Of course.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so...
We got to get you through grade school and high school first.
Yeah, that's cool. We'll go there. But, just that's how he got to be that guy,
And what did your mom do?
She was a mom.
Did she mom?
She was...
Chris Zester said his mom mommed her balls off. Which I thought was shout out to Chris and to your mom, Chris.
No, she was, she did part-time jobs, and she was...
siblings?
Abby Rents.
Oh, I remember Abby Rents.
She worked for Abby Rents. I remember that.
Oh, that's interesting.
And I've got a sister, and...
Yeah, what does your sister do?
She's like sort of retired-ish, I think. She lives up in San Rafael.
What did she do?
She used to be in, Burke Williams, I think. No, I'm sorry, not Burke Williams. Williams Sonoma.
Oh, yeah.
She was like an executive with Williams Sonoma.
Nice.
Back in
I
the
love
day.
Williams. Can I just say, having nothing to do with audio, that I like brick and mortar stores, and I want to walk into Williams Sonoma and look for that knife,
exactly,
or whatever the fuck it is that I want for my kitchen, and sur la table, and touch it, and figure it out. I feel the same way about record stores. I actually feel the same way about pretty much fucking everything, even though I buy a lot of stuff online.
Yeah, there's something different. It depends on what it is.
Browsing.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm just saying. So, you know what? You people, Pottery Barn, Gap, all that, you know what? Keep the stores open. If there's looters, deal with it. Get a security guard. I don't know. Yeah. Figure it out. So you went to elementary school in Sherman Oaks?
Yep, a little place called Chandler Elementary School.
Oh, I think
it was literally in my backyard. It was like, picture Magnolia and Hazeltine out in the valley.
Right.
That's where the school is, and we lived right behind it.
Dude, was that good or bad living that close to school?
It was fine.
Yeah.
Could hop over the fence and go play in the playground or
Couldn't
whatever.
really cut class without getting caught, though. They'd probably see you fucking around.
No, that didn't happen at that age back in that time period.
Yeah. So it was, elementary school was like 1 through 5 at that point. And then
6.
1 through 6. And then we had junior high, which
7
was
through
7, 8.
8, 9,
and then
10.
High school was 9th grade
high
for
school
me.
was, I don't know.
Yeah, we had elementary school, then junior high.
Yeah, I was in junior high.
Was 7 and 8th, and then you started high school.
Mine was more.
But then they started middle school.
Yeah.
And middle school was 6, 7, 8.
Yeah, no, I think mine was 7, 8, 9. It might have been 7, 8, 9, 10, but I don't remember. It's too long ago.
Weird. No.
Probably 7, 8, 9.
No. Yeah, maybe.
It was at least 7, 8, 9, yeah.
And high school?
Grant.
Oh, really?
Yeah, which was
I
definitely...
live in the Valley. If you live in the Valley, you know where Grant is.
Yeah, Grant was sort of a
Grant's
mecca
on Burbank.
On Burbank and... it's
Fulton.
Oxnard. And
Oxnard,
between
Fulton?
Burbank and Oxnard, it's big. Burbank and Oxnard and Whitsett and Coldwater, or maybe it's
Fulton?
Coldwater, I think.
Fulton? It is Coldwater.
No, it's Coldwater or Whitsett.
It
one
is
of those.
Coldwater.
Yeah,
It is Coldwater.
yeah. And so it's like a place a lot of people in the music business came out of.
Yeah, it's a big school still.
Well,
It's
oh yeah,
still
but
there.
I meant as far as people that fed into our business.
Ah.
I mean, like in my class
Who?
was the Picaros. In my personal class was Mike.
Oh.
Jeff was in the one ahead of me.
If you don't know who the Picaros are, look it up.
Toto.
Yeah, look it up.
And Steve was in the grade below me.
Mm.
But then there's them, and then there was Quiet Riot, Kevin DeBro.
Kevin DeBro.
Right, was in my class. And yeah, exactly. And Ron Sobel from, what was the punk band?
Not the Replacements.
God, I can't remember the name of the band, but Ron Sobel was from there too. And then before me, there was all these people. Tom Scott from the LA Express.
Oh, wow.
Mickey Dolenz from the Monkees.
Oh, I love that Mickey Dolenz went there.
Yeah. And actor Tom Selleck.
Ooh.
These are all older,
Wow.
older than me guys.
Dude, I
but,
still watch Magnum P.I. I watch the original one all the time.
Sure.
Yeah. I watch I Spy a lot with Robert Culp and Bill Cosby.
Oh, yeah.
I watch Rockford Files and I watch Magnum
Yeah. Why not?
to escape. Yeah. So one of the things we're gonna I'm a little tired today. One of the things we talk about besides everything that is Ellis and has to do with Ellis is I manage East West Studios. We're in East West Studios 3 today.
The wonderful,
very
famous.
historic room. We call it the Pet Sounds room. That record was actually done in other studios as well, including Gold Star and Capitol, but a lot of it was done here in Studio 3.
Yeah.
And
lots of other huge,
loves, dude, so
massive.
awesome. We were talking
San
earlier.
Francisco Nights, right? Also,
No, it was Scott McKenzie.
Yeah,
Are
yeah.
you going to San Francisco?
Exactly? Yeah, that's the one
Yeah,
I
yeah.
meant. Anyway,
Mamas
yeah.
and Papas.
Right. Yeah.
But enough about me.
Yeah.
So you went to Grant.
Yeah.
Now, did you go to college?
I wanted to become an architect. I thought. Okay.
Yeah, Brian wanted to be an architect.
And I'd taken stuff in high school a little
Like
bit along that, drafting and all that kind of
Nice.
crap.
Back when public school actually had art programs,
Right, exactly,
and
yeah.
trade stuff, like boys could do shop,
Right.
girls had home ec.
Yeah, whatever.
Nothing wrong with any of that stuff.
No.
Practical stuff.
And so I thought that was something I was interested in, and I wasn't positive. So I went across the street to Valley Junior College.
Yeah.
And I enrolled, I was there about 6 months. And then I get a phone call. And the call is from a guy named Larry Levine, who is a very famous engineer.
Yeah, I know who Larry Levine is.
Yeah, but they may not.
They probably don't.
They probably don't know who what Gold Star Studios was either.
Yeah.
But so he ran Gold Star, and he also, after that, he was Herb Alpert's engineer.
Okay.
And he ran A&M Records.
Why'd he call
the
you?
Studios, because I was on what I didn't even know, a waiting list for the apprenticeship program at A&M Studios.
Did your dad put you on that
He
list
put me on that list
to you?
unbeknownst to me when I was
Nice.
14 years old.
Oh, fuck. What was your dad's what's your dad's first name?
Phil.
All right.
Yeah. And so what had happened was, and this is more the backstory of A&M.
Phil
You want me to
Sorkin.
go down that back road a little
Okay.
bit?
Yeah, yes, please.
Okay, so when I was born, my parents, there used to be some kind of thing called Red Cross School or something like that, where parents would learn how to diaper babies
Right.
and shit like that,
Yeah.
parenting stuff, right?
Right.
And so they met this couple and became really good friends with this couple named Dave and Marilyn Alpert.
Oh, my God.
And that was Herb's older brother.
Oh, wow.
And they were having a baby the same time my parents were. A week apart, we were born, and that was where Randy Alpert came into the world.
Oh, yes.
And so we grew up together. Our families were very tight. We used to go on trips with them and
nice.
stuff, and weekend barbecue crap
Oh,
at their
nice.
house or our house or whatever. And eventually my dad, because of that, sort of got all the A&M accounts as an insurance man before he had this thing that he created, kind of this entity of being the insurance
Oh, so
guy.
he had not only but he had their insurance for their businesses and things like that.
and the artists.
Oh, okay.
Cat Stevens.
Oh,
and,
wow.
people, very Joan Baez, I think. But then because of the, the attorneys and managers that were involved with a lot of the people at the label, we had in-house everything,
Right.
And he met all these other artists and people through those people. So he handled Frank Zappa. He handled Bob Dylan.
Oh, cool.
He handled...
Dude, think about what a coup that would be for an
Santana.
insurance guy.
Yeah.
You'd have their homeowners. You'd have all their...
Tours.
Yeah. Oh, wow.
Yeah. mansions and
Oh,
their,
nice. All their
everything. He did
gear.
everything, all
All
that
their
stuff,
instruments.
everything. Yeah,
And how does that work when you're an insurance guy? Do you get commissions on the policies you sell? Yeah,
I would assume so.
I would guess so.
I mean, he's been dead for, I don't know, 25 years
God
now or
rest in
something.
peace,
yeah,
Phil.
yeah. And so, but
What was your mom's name?
Roz. Yeah.
God rest in
And
peace,
so,
Ross.
yeah. And so when I was 14, at one point or another, he took me to the studio just to have a little visit, and I sat in on a session in a room sort of similar to this size. It was Studio C at A&M.
Yeah.
And it was with Larry Levine, actually, coincidentally, and Claudine Longet
I remember Claudine Longet.
and Andy Williams.
I was going to say...
They were dating, I think, at the time, and I think he was producing her, too.
Everybody, look up the story of Claudine Longet and Andy Williams when you hear this podcast. It's quite a torrid affair.
And also the tennis player.
Spider guy. She murdered him?
Right,
or
something. There was
somebody got murdered.
Somebody got murdered, yes, exactly. So this was before that, and this was what session I was on. And I was just hanging out, and my dad must have seen that I was sort of interested in it. And they were recording Bring on the Clouds, I think. Or bringing Judy Collins.
Judy Collins song,
right,
yeah.
It was a
Bring
cover.
on the Clowns.
Oh, was that what it was? Okay, yeah. And there was one with Joni did something with the clouds, though, right? Something.
I've looked at clouds
Yeah,
from
something.
both sides now.
Yeah, something.
I can't sing.
It wasn't that song.
Dear listener.
Yeah. So he saw that I was into it, and at that point he must have put me on this list.
Dude, how cool, the list.
And so essentially I go over there and get interviewed, and they say, okay, you want this job? You're hired. And I didn't know shit about studio stuff. I mean, I'd been a musician as a kid a little bit, but
what did you
guitar, flute, whatever. But I didn't know.
Were you in band or anything at school?
Yeah, in junior high, but I had a band.
Ellis is a band nerd.
No, when I was in high school, I was in a band, or whatever that was. Nothing like the Toto Boys, who were actually had a band called Rural Still Life at the time.
Dude, they were like Steve Lukather was amazing at 12.
Oh yeah, and Paige.
Yeah,
and,
yeah.
Yeah, and they all had that band.
Landau, all of them.
That was the band that played like parties and shit. Was
backyard parties and everything.
Well, whatever, But I mean, there was like 12 of them or something at the time. It was a huge band.
I just saw Landau recently, and then we saw Steve Lukather at the Baked Potato. Which, by the way, we should all just be going to the Baked Potato every night.
Oh yeah,
it's amazing. Like
maybe a Vin Audio.
Oh, that would be so fun. Besides that, Don Randy owns it, his son Justin runs it, and we love them. We talked about Don Randy earlier today and what an incredible musician he is and all the incredible players that have been in and out of the facility that I run. And Ellis would have encountered them as well at his time at A&M. But these guys, they were prodigies for sure.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Maybe there's something in the water in Sherman Oaks.
Well, a long time ago.
But my husband, my husband said that his mom played bridge.
Your husband is Brian.
Yeah, my husband.
Just
Brian.
so that you want to give him the plug.
Hey, Brian. That his mom was playing bridge. My mother-in-law was playing bridge with Steve Lukather's mom, and Brian was like 9, and Steve Lukather was like 12, and Steve Lukather was like, "I'm going to play the Forum one day," and Brian was like, "He's amazing. I want to be a guitar player."
That's funny. That's small world. Story. Small world.
Yeah, and Landon was around too. He was like 12.
Huh.
But all these great players, all this cool stuff. So now you're
so I
how old were you? So now, but you were 19, on the wait list. But 19, you're 19.
19 years old.
Okay.
And so they have
Ellis has red hair naturally, by the way.
At some point. Mostly gray, what's left.
It's good.
So I come into this program. It's their apprenticeship
program. Yeah, what is the program?
And
Get your shit together or fail?
Yeah, completely.
Seriously.
Completely.
Yes.
It was
Shark Tank.
It was totally like that. Yes, it's like but you started, they didn't expect anything from you in the beginning. It's
the
like,
first week.
Well, no, period. I mean, they taught you learned by watching and helping.
All right.
And so it was like
sort of like me.
Making coffee,
of course.
whatever.
Cleaning toilets, whatever.
Yeah, well, we didn't clean toilets, but it was A&M. We had 9 people on the maintenance crew for the studios.
Now, those of you who don't know the history of the A&M Studios, they are on what was the
Charlie Chaplin
lot.
Right.
Now, Chaplin also had an apartment on the Raleigh lot, and also there was a Chaplin Studios on the Raleigh lot. But
this was the main one.
Yeah, but the Chaplin lot was where A&M Studios is on La Brea, and it was his lot.
Right, exactly. Yeah. And so...
Super cool.
Yeah, amazing studios of the time. At that
Still.
time, still good. But I mean, back then it was legendary kind of thing, And so, and I didn't even know, I didn't know much about
That's
it.
probably a good thing.
I knew I liked.
You might have been more intimidated.
Yeah, probably. I'm sure I would have been. Yeah, especially with the people who I ended up working with.
Yeah, so we're going to get to that.
Yeah, of course. And
So what happened that first? Do you remember anything that first month? Like anything you fucked up or crazy shit?
Not that I fucked up, but shit that it was like, okay, so this is what I'm supposed to do kind of shit. And it's like, okay, so we're laying these cables out and they're going to these things here, like this one here. And this is how you drape it over here. And that's how you plug it in over there.
And how you make sure that if it falls, it's going to be okay.
Yeah, well, you don't let it fall. But and you also make sure that the cables are going neatly and shit to wherever they're going. Yes. And then, finding out about how the chairs get placed in the session and the headphones, how you put them out. And then you go around and this is later that you learn how to check the microphones to see if they're working and the headphones are working and the volume's good.
We call this scratching.
Yeah, all of that started like that. And then, but it was...
Because we go like this.
Yeah, I was sort of shadowing the assistants, basically.
Yeah. Who would the assistants have been when you started?
Heavies, now.
Yeah.
Tommy Vicari.
Oh, wow.
Norm Kinney.
Oh, wow.
Steve Mitchell.
Oh, killer.
Okay, so all those cats were my seniors. They had been there, when I started, they'd probably been there.
2 or 3 years.
Porter, 2, 3, 4 years maybe even, yeah. Oh. And so they were almost junior engineers kind of at that point, more than assistants. And I was part of this cast of assistants, going to be assistants. Yeah. I'd assist them sometimes when they were doing gigs.
Here we still do the intern, runner to assistant to first thing, which becomes freelance. But the trajectory is kind of the same.
Yeah.
Now, I'm highly familiar with A&M, but everybody listening might not be. So this would have been what year? 70?
73.
Okay, so 73.
Late 73.
Okay, so it's 73.
Yeah.
So not only were A&M artists recording at the studios, but it was commercially available to anyone that could come in and pay.
And the majority of people were not A&M artists.
Really?
Yes.
I was going to ask. Yeah. And I was going to ask if A&M artists ever took precedence.
No, there was no level of that. It was all whoever booked first. Other than Herb. Herb took precedence.
Okay, good.
Generally.
Herb Albert, Tijuana Brass. Look it up.
And then essentially, I would say 70% of what we did was outside, not A&M artists.
Got you. Probably more.
Yeah, maybe even more than that. Because if you think about it, the same thing probably happened at Capitol when they were open.
Yeah.
Was that the artists that are on the label don't necessarily want to work under the microscope of the A&R people.
Dude, so true.
And all that shit. So
this is what's so surprising to me about Universal and other companies reopening studios. You and I have seen this. We've seen a lot of trends, and we've seen one trend where labels own studios. Then they didn't. Then they did. Remember when Warner Brothers owned Amigo?
Sure, of course. Yeah.
And then obviously Universal owns Capitol, Interscope, et cetera. But always that would be the case that the artist didn't want to be under the scrutiny of the A&R.
Right. Exactly.
The suits, as it were.
Exactly.
No offense to A&R people.
Yeah, and that's why it was mainly other people, and so we worked with everybody. I mean,
so you're shadowing Tommy and people of this.
Yes,
caliber.
Steve Mitchell, Tommy, Norm Kinney, people like that, who were actually at that point really engineers. Mm-hmm. Really, at that point, they would assist some of the senior guys. There was a group above them which were real legit senior engineers.
Were they freelance or did they work for
They were staff. This is all staff, everybody. It's a big ass company, okay? And we had the guys that were the seniors and we had guest people that would come in, they're seniors, like Al Schmidt, Phil Ramone, people like that would come a lot.
Yeah.
But our senior cats were like Hank, no, he wasn't around yet. Hank Sicalo.
Yep.
Henry Louis.
Yep.
Dick Bogert.
Yep.
Ray Gerhardt. These were cats that were already, I mean, granted, I was a kid and they felt like to me that they were old, but they were probably only
28.
Well, no, I think they were older. I think maybe they were 35, 40, gotcha. Some of those cats,
Well, and so Western and Capitol having started in the 60s.
Right.
A&M opened
60 also. 66, I think.
66, right.
Something like that.
So someone like a Bill Putnam or Lee Hirschberg or Wally Heider,
they
would have all been contempts of these senior lead people at A&M. Contemporaries. They all
Yeah, they're all the original main cats. Bones Howe, people like that. Yeah. That was the yo guys.
Yo.
And and I worked under very quickly after, let's say, working underneath the lower cats, maybe I'd assist them on demos, or if they were doing some indie little record, I would assist on that.
Okay.
But then I pretty quickly started assisting the main cats: Henry Louis, Hank Sicalo.
So what was
Dick
the?
Booker,
So I know some of your history.
Bruce Swedeen,
But yeah, just a couple people.
who wasn't on staff.
But what was the first session that you did as a staff assistant, and who was the engineer?
That's a really good question.
Do you remember the first session?
Boy, that's a toughie.
Okay.
I mean, I remember the first album that I engineered.
Okay. Well, but what about assisting? So I know you worked with.
I assisted on everything. I mean, I assisted on, with Henry.
Yes.
I did 3 Joni Mitchell records.
Right.
That was Court and Spark.
Great.
Hissing of Summer Lawns.
One of my favorites.
And Hissing of Summer Lawns, and then Miles of Isles.
Do the writer, the famous writer, Webb. Jimmy Webb.
Yeah, Jimmy Webb, yeah. I worked with him too with Up and Away.
And who was he married to?
What was that? The
Fifth
group?
Dimension.
Fifth Dimension, thank you.
Marilyn
yes.
McHugh.
Yes, yep.
Yeah, and her husband Bobby, or
Wouldn't know, but I did work with Jimmy Webb too at some point.
Billy Davis.
Billy Davis, there you go. Yeah,
Is that
yeah.
right?
That sounds right.
I think that's right.
Right era, anyway.
Fact check.
Yeah.
Who and Jimmy Webb was married? Patsy Webb?
I don't know.
Anyway, there's all kinds of shenanigans.
More
going.
wine.
Yeah. Get some more wine. We're drinking. Is it a 2012?
It is a 2012, if I recall. I'll look again. Let's
2012 Lavelle Barton. You can also learn about wine on Trade Secrets.
Exactly.
If you choose to.
Especially today.
Yeah, especially today. This is a nice wine.
It is very nice.
Trusty Steve Keith has availed us of his private stash. It's a Saint Julien. Nice.
Very nice.
It's
Thank
a nice
you, Keith.
wine. Yeah, we've got some pieces coming too from Lantique.
Wonderful.
We probably won't eat on camera.
No, it's okay. So anyway, back to
Henry Louis, our first record.
The first record with Henry would have been Court and Spark.
Great record.
Which was, I didn't do the entire record. I think I did about half of it.
So good.
With them, and
What
like
was her first
overdubs.
record? Was it just called Joni Mitchell?
Oh, I don't know. There was a few before that.
I don't
Blue
remember.
was one of the first ones.
Right, Blue.
Also way before that, though, like
Yeah.
a few years. This was like more her commercial period.
Yeah. Oh, dude,
And
Court and Spark's killer. As his Hissing of Summer
Hissing
Lawns.
is one of the most
one of my
underrated.
favorite records.
It was actually Prince's favorite record of all time.
It's one of my favorite records. Obviously, you know that I have older siblings and that they were recording engineers, but
Right.
we're not going to talk about me. But there were formative records, and that was one of them for me.
Yeah, it was just, granted, I was the assistant, not the first.
And I'd already
but
been listening to
it was
just-
like,
just
well,
60s.
actually, back then.
Like, what were you listening to before then? Like, you're 19 or 20
when I was a
now.
kid?
Yeah, like, did your parents have a great
Rod
record collection?
I had my own kind of too.
Was
but
your sister older sister?
younger. Yeah,
Oh,
she
okay.
wasn't that.
Are you the
into music.
oldest?
Yeah, I'm the oldest. Yeah,
Oh, wow.
yeah. Rod Stewart and the Beatles, obviously, and the
Obviously.
Stones and Led Zeppelin. Well, was Led Zeppelin even there?
Yeah, Zeppelin was 60s.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. And obviously Stones.
Traffic.
Oh, dude, Cream.
Cream.
Fuck yeah, dude.
Free. Remember
Oh,
Free?
yeah,
I loved
totally.
Free. Free was on A&M.
Were they?
Yeah.
That does not surprise me
Yeah.
at all.
Yeah, that was Roger.
Today we were talking about Rod Stewart singing on Beckola and Truth
Oh yeah. Yeah.
for Jeff Beck.
Right. Yeah. Very cool.
Jeff Beck ever record there with you?
Not when I was there. Not that I
No.
know of. And
Okay,
nor
so-
did Rod. I never worked with Rod, but I
really?
did work with Joe Cocker. I worked with a lot of
So
many
loved
other
Joe
great art.
Cocker.
George Harrison.
Probably Leon Russell.
I worked. No, Leon. Yeah, he only, but not him as an artist. He was playing on stuff that I
Yeah,
recorded.
he was part of the Wrecking Crew. That was
Oh, yeah.
crazy.
Well, the
People
Wrecking
don't
Crew
realize
lived
that. He
there.
played on all the Doris Day records. Did you know that?
Yeah, I've heard that.
That
yeah.
was crazy.
Yeah, no, I mean all those cats were on everything.
Yeah.
Of the 50s and 60s.
Yeah, and the
all that
Wrecking
crap.
Crew. So people, if you want to really delve into it, there's a book, there's documentaries.
movie, yeah.
And thanks to Denny Tedesco but Tommy Tedesco's son made that documentary. But who was in the Wrecking Crew? Tommy Tedesco. But
Yeah.
the Wrecking Crew was a rotating cast of the top LA session players at the time. Carol Kay. You had Hal Blaine. Yeah, there's so many that I'm
Tons
not
of them.
naming.
Yeah, well, they're all in the in the movie.
Oh yeah, they are all in the movie. But
And they weren't known as the Wrecking Crew either.
No,
they,
I know.
They were just the cats.
They were just the cats.
Yeah.
I think they called themselves the Wrecking Crew later, my understanding was, because they came in with wrecking ball.
Haven't
and
ever
took over.
heard that, but
I don't know.
if that happened, it was late
Yeah, it
on.
was late. I don't know.
Yeah.
But yeah, they were just the cats that got called on sessions. So I talked a lot in the podcast that I did with JJ Blair. We talked a lot about session players. So A&M, was Studio D the big room, as I remember
A
it?
was the big room.
Oh, A was the big
D
room.
was also a big room.
Okay.
A was the biggest room.
I remember going there when David Cassidy had
really?
a record release in D.
In D.
And I was just really young. I had just started.
Yeah, I worked in D on the Carpenters, Supertramp.
Dude, so good.
Supertramp, and then
dude, Supertramp. Was
some
it
stuff with
Breakfast
George
in
Harrison.
America?
Yeah, it was Breakfast in America.
record.
Yeah. I wasn't the engineer. Again, I was the assistant, and I wasn't even fully the assistant because Eddie Thacker,
Thacker.
he was one of my
I love
the
Ed
guys
Thacker.
after me, like one of the lower cat, whatever you want to say. After my starting, he was there like a year later.
Après. We'll say it in French.
Yeah, après.
Après-moi.
Exactly. So Thacker and Bev Jones, guys like that, started after I did, but Eddie was really tight with Ken Scott.
Oh yeah.
And so they were sort of like
Ken
the team.
Scott, Magical Mystery Tour, Beatles, get it together.
Plus 40 others.
Oh,
Jeff Beck and
many
David
things.
Bowie.
Oh yeah. Oh no.
Elton John.
Dude.
Couple,
I think.
One of the greatest engineers ever lived. Ken.
And Ken's still with us. Ken,
Yes.
if you listen to my podcast, I'll send you an email. Check it out. Also, Jeff Emmerich, may he rest in peace, who was prior with the Beatles, prior to Ken.
Yeah.
On the earlier Beatles stuff.
Yeah.
As was Alan Parsons, etc.
Of course. Yeah.
But Alan Parsons was tape op.
That's right. He was. Yeah. But he.
Yeah. He's
where
amazing.
were we? What were we talking?
We're basically talking about your first record, and it was Joni Mitchell.
Well, no, that wasn't the first. That was just one of the most memorable.
Okay, first record assisting you couldn't quite remember.
There's just too many. I mean, literally, everybody thinks they work a lot today in studios.
No.
They don't even know what work is.
Yeah.
The slowest week we would ever work, would be 60 or 70 hours. That's dead. That's like nothing going on.
Yeah, I say this often. People can't hang now.
Busy weeks, 100+ hours.
Yeah.
I never, during those weeks, there would be times that you just live there. We had a lounge upstairs with a full shower, bathroom kind of scene.
Change of clothes, toothbrush, toothpaste.
We had lockers.
Deodorant. Yeah, nice.
And we literally lived at the studio because we would, in the mornings.
We don't talk about drugs on the podcast, but did you do drugs?
Huh? We're not talking that yet. That's later. So the studio.
Your kids might listen to this. You don't.
Hey, they're all adults.
Yeah.
They got their own thing.
Yeah.
So in the morning, the routine, once you became like a real assistant / engineer, kind of.
You beat up the underlings and they brought you coffee.
Yeah, that's true. But you started because we had a huge publishing company, Alma Irving.
Yes.
Okay?
Yeah.
Biggest publishing company in the world.
I'm aware. My husband
And
works.
so we would do demos every morning.
Who's Joan?
9 a.m.
Was the lady at Alma Irving Joan? What was her name?
Well, there's a lot. Marsha Burns. And, Brenda Andrews. And, there was a whole cast of people.
Oh, so you were doing
publishing
demos, publishing demos.
Publishing demos for the label, for our publishing company, every morning almost. Okay, that was your gig. That was part of, once you knew what you were doing kind of to record.
Right.
That was your sort of like training ground to become doing big records.
Right.
Okay. And so that happened almost every day at 9 a.m.
Jesus.
Okay.
And you'd been up
and
till
I would
4.
up till 4, 5, 6.
Oh, shit.
Okay. And we had a crew of musicians. It was almost like a set crew. And there were great musicians in this great studio.
Yeah.
And we had great writers. And things came out amazing.
Staff writers.
Staff writers for our publishing company. Yeah,
Wow.
exactly. Which were big writers. Okay. One of which I became this person's guy. And her name was Allie Willis.
Okay.
And so we did a few demos, one of which was a song called September. Another one was called Boogie Wonderland.
Oh, God, I love this.
And another song by a group called the Pointer Sisters called Jump.
There you go.
And so she wrote all those songs.
Wow.
And I was her guy. And these songs sounded like the records. Exactly. Because we had the best musicians playing on them. Everybody wanted to be around A&M. So these cats that were playing were really talented people that wanted to try and get into the scene.
Right.
The guitarist, who I'm still great friends with, was a guy named Kevin Moore.
Oh.
Who now is known as Kev Mo. He's a big...
Oh, he was, so I've known Kevin for a long time as well. I never really realized that he came from that
he was the
camp.
guitarist that I worked with every day almost.
Wow.
And there were other cats that came out of it, but he was the biggest name as a musician.
Right, as a solo artist.
Yeah, solo artist later, yeah. And that was the morning from 9 to 1.
Okay.
And speaking of weed, yes, there was stuff cooking in the morning even. So,
Dude, I'd be asleep.
there was wake and baking going
God,
on.
you'd be asleep. Though.
Yeah, but it was just the scene. It was the 70s.
Yeah.
And so then after that, in the afternoon, what would happen is commercials usually.
Jingles. We were talking. Yeah,
Yep.
jingles. And I was saying that I think that it's such great training.
Yeah,
for the flow. It's so fast paced.
Exactly.
You can't mess around.
You have to have your stuff together totally.
It's almost like being like live.
Oh,
like,
yeah. Exactly.
Yeah.
It is. It's
live.
It's a shot below live. It's like, drum sounds, boom, 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 boom.
5 minutes.
5 minutes.
Yeah.
1 minute.
Slow down. Yeah.
Hit the snare, hit the kick, hit the boom. One more time. Okay, we're good.
Wow.
But the musicians were...
We don't do jingles hardly at all anymore.
Well, I know. Everybody's doing it on a computer at home or whatever, And,
dude, Chiat Daly and Associates.
Yeah, exactly. I used to work with a lot of that too myself as studio referral service. We used to be doing tons of jingles. Not anymore. I don't even remember when I last did one.
Yeah, it's rare. I have no idea.
But anyway, so that was the afternoon. From
so it's 9 to 1 demos.
Yeah,
two to 6,
5 or
whatever.
6. Yeah, probably
jingles.
Maybe 5. I don't think they went longer than 3
dinner
hours.
Break.
Yeah, dinner break hardly, but there wasn't really a dinner break because what you were doing was setting up for the night session.
Yeah.
And the night session was going to be Joni or George Harrison.
Yeah, all you hip hop guys, you think you're the ones who invented the night session, forget about it. It's rock and roll, baby.
Yeah.
Pop artists.
Exactly. And so, Joan Baez and like Chuck Mangione and, all these different Neil Diamond.
Diamonds and Rust, one of my favorite records.
I did that record. That was an amazing record to work on too. Just, that was.
He's so good.
And they loved me. Joan and her management.
Yeah.
Loved me. They gave me
more.
They gave me more credit on the record than the producer or the engineer.
Oh, nice.
Which was pretty wild.
That might have cost.
Because I was like the staff guy.
Right.
And they felt like family with me more.
Yeah, and they're like, Ellis needs to get his creds.
And the producer and engineer, who are both great guys, by the way, and I won't even say who they are because they're friends still.
Yeah.
But they were, sort of like outsiders because they were from another label.
Gotcha.
That they brought in, And
was she on A&M? No, she was.
Yes, that's what I'm saying. I was part of the family with her.
A&M.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, I thought she was on Columbia.
No, A&M. And so that was her record. And then, I did records with Richard Perry a lot, Carly Simon, and it was just one thing after another. It was just and a lot of it had to do with our other labels that were affiliated. So on the lot, big lot, as you know.
Yes.
There was Ode Records, which was Lou Adler.
Oh, okay.
Okay. And so all that, I worked on a lot of that stuff with Hank Sakala was Lou Adler's engineer, basically.
Gotcha,
They were a team.
Yeah.
Okay. And so some Carole King, not Tapestry, but after that I worked a little bit on some of that. Cheech and Chong, I worked on that Big Red album,
I love
if you
that.
remember that record. And the Rocky Horror Picture Show.
Oh, that's so funny. Keith is going tomorrow night to actually see the movie.
Yep. So I worked on the soundtrack of that.
Dude, Tim Curry
was there.
He's a great singer.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, he was. I did the vocals
He's
on
amazing.
it. Yeah.
And he had other albums that I liked. I was into him, like Ian Dury and the Blockheads and Tim Curry during the kind of like the late 70s, early 80s punk scene.
Exactly.
English scene.
Yeah. And then we had, there was a producer named Jeff Berry, who a lot of these people aren't going to know, but they know the music.
Okay.
And we'd have to probably pull it up and see, but he had his offices up there. He was like, Chapel of Love, the Do Ron Ron.
The Chapel
Yeah.
So like a Phil Spector kind of guy?
Total. He was the writer for a lot of those songs that Phil Spector produced. The Ronettes and all that kind of stuff. Jeff Berry wrote.
You guys know that.
And Ellie Greenwich. They were like a team, Jeff Berry and Ellie Greenwich.
Does everyone know that Ronnie Spector, who was married to Phil Spector, was Ronnie of the Ronettes?
Exactly. Yeah. And so he had his offices up there, and so worked on a lot of stuff with him. And he's still around. And there was Quincy had Quest Records on the lot.
Right. Oh, right. Yeah.
And there was
what a magical
IRS.
Right. Yeah. What a magical time.
It was insane. It was like you had everybody.
The record plan was happening at that time, and it
not in the same way because it wasn't a record company.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it had a heyday. But what I think, whatever they were doing at the record plant was great stuff for sure.
Yeah.
But I think what you were doing at A&M was more genre diverse.
Yes, they were rock and roll.
Yeah, yeah.
Pretty much.
And you were
everything else.
You were pop. You were funk.
Everything.
You were the disco. You were everything.
Yeah,
which is super cool.
Yeah, we had a lot of R&B. Like I did the Brothers Johnson, if you know.
Oh, great!
One.
Oh no, amazing.
And LTD.
Yeah,
I
used to turn my nose up to disco, and now I go back and I listen to some of it,
Yeah.
like Boogie Wonderland.
Oh, yeah, it's great stuff.
Dude, it's
Yeah.
fucking great.
Yeah.
It's basically funk.
Yeah, it is.
Or
it is
high-speed
fun.
funk.
It was just called
Disco
at the time.
I don't know.
It is.
Yeah,
you're right.
it was great. Like I Can't Stand the Rain and all that because it's just fucking
A
killer.
lot of great stuff. Exactly. Yeah.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
We should have a little disco wine lunch.
That'd be fun.
Disco wine lunch.
Yeah, why not?
Hey, Trustee Steve Keith, do you have a talk back? I love hearing your voice when we're actually recording. Is he in there? Trustee Steve Keith.
He's out drinking.
Yeah, he's drinking somewhere. I don't know where Trustee Steve Keith is.
So, and then when Jeff Berry left, he had his offices upstairs from where Ode Records was.
Right.
And
Ode was Lou Adler.
Lou Adler's was downstairs also.
But he was Ode.
Ode Records. Yeah,
right,
exactly.
got it.
Yeah. And Mary Clayton, a bunch of other artists on the label, David T. Walker, a bunch of different artists on Ode Records.
I keep moving the mics.
I mean, that he discovered like the Mamas and the Papas.
Oh,
and,
I'm well aware. In the room that we're sitting in, they did the demos and then the records.
Exactly, yeah.
Actually used the demos as the records.
Yeah, and so, Magic working with guys like him and Quincy back in the day. I worked with Roots a little bit with Quincy.
I think people, if you're listening or watching this, if you haven't seen Echo in the Canyon, it's a newer film and it's worth seeing because it goes back and talks about that period with the Byrds and Lou Adler and Laurel Canyon.
Yeah.
But it talks about, it interviews Lou, and I mean, they interview Lou, and Lou talks about a lot of things that was happening kind of during that time frame, like mid-70s.
Yeah, exactly. And then, so when Jeff moved out, I don't remember, I guess he moved out, I don't know the technical reasons why he left,
okay.
But then George Harrison moved in.
Oh, I'm sorry. So Dark Horse.
Yes. Exactly.
Was that his label?
Dark Horse Records.
And was Claudia...
Olivia.
Why did
Olivia,
I fuck that
who
up?
was actually Jeff Berry's secretary, assistant, whatever we want to call it at the time, right? Who I had a crush on.
Oh, beautiful gal.
Beautiful gal. I was intimidated because she was a little older, than me.
Yeah.
I was a kid, and I was always working anyway, so just a distance crush. And Olivia went to work for George.
And the rest is history because they got married.
Exactly. Yes, exactly.
And when people were trying to mess with George, she hit him in the head with a lamp.
There you go.
Remember that story?
No, I don't.
Well, someone broke into their mansion.
Oh, yeah, that one. Yes. I do know that. Yeah, in
clocked
Benedict
somebody in the
Canyon.
head with a lamp.
Yeah, and so George was insanely magical to work with. If you talked about what would be the favorite project other than Joni, or at least
All
as
Things
much.
Must Pass?
No, that was before that. This is 33 1/3 was the record. But,
okay.
Cracker Box Palace, but it wasn't so much about the music; it was about being with George.
It's fucking George Harrison.
It was fucking George Harrison.
Yeah, dude.
It's like who does it get higher end than that?
No,
other than Lennon or McCartney.
Obviously, we love.
Yeah.
We have the influences before that from the '60s, and I'm a little bit younger than you, but not much. And and I have older siblings, so that the things that we love the Beatles, we love the Stones. When people say which, I say why pick? Both.
Yeah.
But for me, when girls tended to have crushes on Paul.
Oh yeah.
I dug George.
Yeah.
Because I thought he was such a good guitar player. And even when I was really young, I would always felt like they need to let George play more songs. I remember thinking that when I was like a teenager.
Yeah.
Like, George is great. They should just, George writes the cool shit too.
Yeah. The thing is about him, he was like an insanely cool, nice guy.
Yeah.
I mean, like
he was a bit of a ladies' man as well. He was a player, but he's George Harrison. Fuck
when
it.
we're in the studio, you don't know any of that or care about it.
Yeah.
And
I'm not. That's not dissing George.
Yeah, no, not at all. But I'm just saying, hanging with him, being around him was easy. And like being like with
he was a gent.
It was like you and I hanging out.
He was a mensch.
It's the same thing as you and I hanging out here. That's how easy he was to hang with.
Down to earth.
As opposed to a lot of other artists
who
that
weren't down to earth.
Were not down to earth, who were obnoxious or whatever else.
Yeah.
But the majority were cool.
I was just about to say, we both agree that the people that are really talented, who quote unquote don't need to prove anything, are super nice and respectful.
Right, exactly.
And appreciative
of what we do. Exactly. Yes. And Neil Diamond was another one like that.
Yeah.
Neil was amazingly nice guy.
Super nice guy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Even Barry Manilow was pretty cool, if I remember.
He was just here.
Yeah.
He was just here a couple months ago
Yeah.
doing like a Christmas thing and ate sweet
Yeah.
pie.
Yeah. Yeah. I think he was back then. But I won't mention who was not cool, because that's not cool.
No, we don't care.
Yeah.
So the people who weren't cool are dead. No.
Yeah. We're dead to us anyway. Yeah.
Well, yeah. Well, no, but there are also people in my career and your career as well where people were uncool and then they got cool later. Like people that have even
there probably some.
apologized.
Yeah.
People that even said like, "I'm sorry,
Yeah,
I
they've
was
changed.
I
Yeah.
was a dick then."
Yeah. Exactly.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. We've seen that.
Yeah. We've seen that happen.
Yeah.
So,
But
I'll tell you how I end the podcast when we get to the end of it. We'll cross that bridge about being cool.
Yeah.
But anyway, so you ended up now. You got the early morning drill with the demos for the
Right,
publishing
exactly,
house. You
yeah.
got the jingle thing happening. Was there ever a point in time where you sort of graduated out of that and then were just doing
engineering.
the pop sessions?
Absolutely, yeah.
Or the other sessions rather.
Engineering, not assisting.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. That happened after a year.
Wow, that's quick.
Yeah, it was very quick. I was
Wow.
very lucky because I was working with an artist that I assisted on a session, an album called Sean Phillips was his name. Do you know who that was at all? He was actually signed to A&M for like 7 years or something.
Familiar name.
He had amazing talent, way ahead of his time.
Okay.
Had like straight long hair that was
that's
down to
really
like below his
familiar.
knees. And there was a story when it happened that he was like, he lived in Italy, I think, and he had like it was on a motorcycle, a motor.
Did his hair
boat,
get caught in the wheel?
in the propeller of a motorboat. Actually, it wasn't a motorcycle; it was a motorboat. And yanked. It was bad. Yeah. And so he's fine now.
Oh, he's okay?
But, yeah. But I did an album with him with an engineer named Larry Faulkner, who was one of the middle guys, kind of, with Mitchell and all those other people.
Yeah.
And he just liked me, and he, whatever. And he said, "Hey, you want to do my next record?"
Nice.
Because Larry was like a little bit of a
dictator.
Well, not so much that, more just I don't want to say nerd, but more nerdy, kind of vibe. And he was not nerdy.
And you were younger.
Young
different
and
kind of
hipper, younger, whatever.
Did you have long hair?
Just moderate. Yeah, big beard and whatever. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, I can't imagine.
Yeah.
I've known you.
Yeah.
How long have I known you?
Probably
30
30
years?
years at least. Yeah.
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 Wow.
More than that, maybe.
Wow.
At Kendon and
Yeah, Take One.
Take One, right?
Yeah.
So when was that?
86.
Well,
Whatever.
that's 27 years anyway, at least, right?
No,
And that was before Soundcastle, right?
Yeah, no, 86 is coming up on 40 years.
Oh, it's 40. Oh, you're
2026 will be 40 years.
Right. So I've known you
Right?
almost
Is that right? Am I doing the math right?
28.
86 to 26 is 40 years.
Yeah, so I've known you almost 40 years.
Wow, that's nuts.
Yeah.
We were 12.
Yeah, exactly.
We're 12 now. So Sean Phillips.
Yeah, so Sean had
Is there
me-
a song that I would know?
I don't think so. No, it was
I'm
just
gonna dig it. I'm gonna check out Sean
you can
Phillips.
check. No,
What
it was
kind
called
of-
the album was called Rumpelstiltskin's Resolve, and it's really cool.
Probably because he had really long hair.
Yeah, but it was so ahead of its time kind of stuff. It was pretty cool. So that was the first one that I engineered, and then
What kind of music? Just pop or folky or?
folky rock,
Nice.
kind of weird, like hard to describe.
Yeah, I mean, those of you who
esoteric.
Those of you who are listening, I don't, there's no idea what the demographic will be of people that will listen to this, but, what we would consider folk. Joan Baez was folk.
Yeah.
Bob Dylan pre-electric guitar
Was folk.
Right. Obviously Woody Guthrie.
Right, of course.
Folk.
Yeah.
Arlo Guthrie.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Folk.
Yeah.
but
This wasn't folk. I mean, it was just
pop.
It was, but very esoteric pop, very guitar driven.
I was going to say, besides,
and
was
synth.
he's obviously a singer, but what did he play? Guitar?
Guitar.
Okay.
Yeah, lots of them, and just really and very
An innovative guitar
multi-dimensional, very multi-dimensional voice. Just
Oh, cool.
really interesting. Yeah.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, you either love it or you go, what is that?
Right.
It's interesting. But so that was the first album, and then, God, I can't even remember what was next, to be honest with you, because it was
doesn't
like
matter.
a lot of what happened was when you started engineering at that point, you started working on parts of projects. Okay, like I would be
comping vocals.
Or, well, not necessarily even that. It would be like the senior guy that was doing Joni Mitchell, let's say, Henry.
Right.
Maybe he had to go do something else that day or that week or whatever the hell, so you step in.
Okay.
Because you were already working on the
So
project.
you'd work on a certain track or
yeah, whatever it was, vocals, guitars,
Okay.
who knows what, overdubs or something.
Yeah, overdubs, yeah.
That kind of thing could happen. That's just, a semi-example, but, or like with Richard Perry, a lot of times his cat wouldn't be around. So
He's come up twice today. We talked about him earlier.
Oh, did you?
Today. Yeah.
Yeah. So sorry about how he's doing. It's so sad.
Yeah.
Talented
cat.
Yeah, very talented cat, and I worked on a lot of stuff with him.
He was one that I will say, and if you heard this, Richard, I don't think you'd be upset, could be difficult, usually for the right reasons.
Yeah.
Usually for the right reasons, for fighting for something that he believed in.
Right.
So valid. But he could be gruff as well.
Oh, yeah.
But then...
And talk about the ladies' man.
Oh, yeah. And then also... could be the total sweetheart, like when he was working with Rod Stewart on those Standards records.
Yeah, the Standards, yeah.
Just such a sweetie pie, Jules.
You guys did some of that stuff.
Yeah, we did some of that early
Jules
one
Chaikin.
at cello.
Boy, what a sweet guy Jules was.
Jules, yeah, but also could be tough.
Yeah.
I mean, it's. I've been really lucky.
Yeah.
People that, and you probably have too, maybe we just, I don't know, didn't rub them the wrong way, but people that were rough, like a Glenn Johns or somebody like that had a reputation for being particular.
Yeah.
Again, earned because they cared.
Yeah.
In my opinion.
Yeah.
There's very few people that were dicks just to be dicks, although there are those people.
There's some of them, yeah. Yeah.
But I always found people to be pretty cool.
Oh, yeah. Well, it's because you were cool. And
I
you knew
hope
what you were
so.
doing. No, that's what it is.
Hope
It
so.
really is. I mean, people are usually jerks when you're a jerk, most of the time.
Or you leave them hanging, twisting in the wind.
whatever.
You don't know what you're doing.
All the above.
Yeah.
Yeah. But generally,
If they feel like you care and you're trying to fix it or take care of them, then
yeah. I mean, there was literally one or two artists that I work with in that whole time period that were jerks.
Yeah.
And big names, one or two of them.
Yeah.
Who will remain nameless.
Yeah. So you ended up doing quite a stretch with Henry Louis.
Yes.
But then Sean Phillips.
That was before that, actually.
Oh, okay.
I think I did the record with Sean. Well, actually, everything
like concurrently.
Was,
it's like
almost like every. And I'm thinking back, it's so long ago. You realize how long ago this is? 1974, 75. That's a long time ago.
I got out of high school in 76.
And I left A&M in 1980.
And you got out of high school in like 72.
73.
Oh, 73. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So I started junior college and left junior college and went to A&M. That's what I'm saying. It was like late 73.
And you left in 1980.
Yeah. Exactly. I was out of A&M in 1980.
Why did you leave?
Because I started studio referral service.
Yes, which is what.
Well, no, that's not why I left. I left because.
Well, you were married.
Well, that's not why at all. No.
You had kids.
None of that had. No, I didn't have kids yet.
But, okay.
But yeah, I was married. But no, what happened was my boss Herb.
Yeah.
Said I met a guy, and I won't mention this guy's name, just again to be cool, at a studio in New York called A&R. And I worked with him when I was there, Herb is saying to me. He says, I'm thinking of hiring him.
Shelly Yakis.
No, I'm not going to say who it was.
It's got to be Shelly.
I think he's still alive, so.
It's got to be Shelly.
His initials are DH. That's all I'll say.
Who the fuck is that? Don Hahn. It doesn't matter,
You can edit it if you want.
Yeah, but nobody knows who that is.
That's true. Nobody's going to know who the fuck he is. Anyway,
no one knows who that is.
so Herb says, and you don't say no to Herb.
No offense to Don, but nobody knows.
You don't say no to Herb. So Herb says, would you mind At this point, I'd been there like 5 years or whatever it was, or I don't know.
Oh, I see where this story is going, and correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah.
You'd been already working long enough, and then you work on this session that's really difficult with someone who's really difficult, and
No,
you're
not
like,
at
fuck
all.
this.
Not at all.
Oh, that wasn't
not
it?
At all. No.
Okay, what happened?
No.
I'm totally wrong.
No, totally wrong. So Herb asks me, I hadn't assisted a session for a long time. He goes, would you mind assisting a session with this guy? Because I'm thinking of hiring him. And then after the session,
see what his chops are or whatever.
He wanted to have somebody from the crew check out the guy, because I was one of the main cats, at that point, because I'd been there almost 6 years, 7 years, whatever.
Right.
And so I said, sure, of course, And so he says, I'll bring in Gatto Barbieri, and we'll do some overdubs.
Nice.
And then afterwards, come over and we'll talk about it. See what I thought about the guy.
Right.
So I did the session, and he was okay. He wasn't anything that unusual, whatever. And I went to Herb's office, and we sat and talked, and he said, anything different or unusual about the guy? And I said, no, not really. He's pretty much on par with most of the cats here. And he says, did he do anything different or unusual? And I said, he was running, I can't remember if it was either a VSO that he was running on the tape echo, or he was using Dolby on the tape. One little minor thing that we hadn't been doing or something.
Yeah, using Barry speed or using noise reduction.
Yeah, something. Yeah, like some minor thing like that. And that was about it. And then a week later, he got hired as a senior engineer. Okay. And so it's like, okay, so he's in the grouping of like Dick Bogert and Hank Sicalo and all these.
Is he above you technically?
Above me, yes, totally. Yeah.
Well, that's annoying.
Well, it is what it was. I was still part of that group of guys that you don't really, nobody ever became a senior engineer of any of those guys that were originally the interns and then assistants and then engineers for whatever. The senior engineers were the senior engineers and we were us.
Okay.
And those other cats, as you know, Tommy Okari, Norm Kinney, all these guys left and became independents.
Yeah.
Robert Appert, Brad Chiat, all these other guys were gone.
Yeah.
So a month later, after he'd been there a month, I'm walking down the back hallway and, between sessions. And again, at this point, I'm like one of the cats, like one of the senior
you've been
guys.
there a while.
Yeah, long time.
Yeah.
And I see this gentleman coming down the hallway.
Yeah, sorry. It doesn't matter.
And it doesn't matter. And he goes, "Hey, Ellis." And I go, "Yeah." And he goes, "Give me your keys and get the fuck out of here." And I thought he was like joking around or something,
What the fuck?
And it was like he was firing me. And it was like,
how did he have the ability to fire you?
because he had become a month later. I missed that part. A month after he started, he became the chief engineer. And he
my theory right now
Yeah.
is that he fired you because you were threatening.
very likely.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, but that's partially what it was. But
Or you recognize his mediocrity.
No, here's what it is.
Oh, right.
In the end, he wanted to bring in all of his crew
From New York.
from Canada, where he was from, and New York, all of his people. I was the first guy to go. He fired everybody. He had a 5-year contract with A&M, and he fired everybody within the first year.
And Herb didn't.
No. But
Herb let him have
and when
his
I talked to
autonomy.
Herb about it, briefly, I said, "Hey, what can you do it? I can't. There's nothing I can do. I hired him. He's got a contract. Whatever. It's like what it is.
I need to let him do his thing.
Yeah.
Basically.
And so at the end of the contract,
Bummer.
the day the contract was up, he was on the street. And that was A&M's the high days, the high times were when I was there and before.
Yeah.
The low times were when he was there, as far as the business and how A&M did as a studio. And then it went up again big time because that's when Jimmy and Shelley started.
Oh, absolutely.
Jimmy Iovine and Shelley Akis.
So who brought Jimmy and Shelley out?
Probably Herb and Jerry in some way.
I hope so.
Yeah, whatever. I don't know the technical, how the deal happened, that they became the guys for that long period of time.
Right.
But they did their thing, and they were another high time, obviously, for A&M Records.
Absolutely. So that happens, and you were blindsided.
But
Were you married yet?
let's see, that was 1980. Yeah, first marriage was 79. I recently got married. Yeah. And so, exactly. And it was right at Christmas that I got fired. Like literally a week or two before Christmas, And so, but luckily A&M was a very cool company. I had a pension, even at that age, a young kid. I think I walked out, it's so long ago, I don't remember, it was either $11,000 or $20,000.
Holy crap.
Back then.
Wow.
Okay. And so essentially what happened was 6 months before that or so, I was hanging out in our front office at the studio. And I'm with Sandy Smart, who is the studio manager, and Denise Porter, who is her assistant. And the tape librarian was Cheryl Ingalls, who works with you too, I think to this day.
Yeah.
Cheryl was hanging out and she was reading Billboard. And I said, "Hey, what's going on?" Just hanging out in between sessions. And, "Oh, there's an interesting article here." And I said, "Oh, really? What's it about?" She goes, "Well, there's this guy, and I don't remember the guy's name, but he was the road manager for Genesis.
Okay.
And what he was doing was buying downtime from the studios in London that weren't booked late at night or whatever
Right.
at a really cheap rate, and then selling it to local people, local bands, to get people into the studios.
Oh, okay.
To use up
After hours rates.
After hours rate downtime. And this is 1979.
Okay.
So it's forward thinking,
Yeah, very.
And he made a little money on it, I guess, by whatever
commission.
a differential commission, whatever he did. We bought it. He did it differently than what I do with Studio Referral, but he actually bought the time and then resold it.
Oh, wow.
Okay. And so he planted the seed, or Cheryl, thank you, Cheryl, planted the seed for Studio Referral service in my head by doing that. Because I thought, wouldn't it be cool? Because in this time period, in the late 70s, early 80s, there were starting to become smaller studios out there also. There weren't only...
Right. There was a lot of B rooms at that time.
Yeah.
We don't call them B rooms, but rooms like
Independence.
Stag's that are still around.
Yeah.
Stag Street,
Present
Red
Time.
Zone, Take One.
No, they weren't there yet.
Oh, you're right. They weren't there yet.
No,
so it would
no.
have been...
But there were some smaller ones like Hitman.
Okay,
on
Hitman,
Fairfax.
yeah.
Present Time in North Hollywood. I think Stag might have started
Stag was
around
probably
there.
around, yep.
You know, it wasn't called Stag. It was Denton.
Was Track Record around?
No, way before. Well, it may have existed, but that was when, what's his name owned it?
Tom Murphy.
No, before Tom Murphy.
Okay.
The guy who built it, who was Emmylou Harris's husband. It was called, God, I don't remember.
There's a lot of history about
Enactron, Magnolia Enactron Studios
is
what it was called. And that's, the guy's name is, I'm blanking, but he was married to Emmylou Harris, and that was their studio.
Got ya.
And that might have been around then.
Okay.
And that was sort of an independent, and I'm not sure if
But these are what you and I would consider like overdub rooms, as opposed to the larger, really famous track rooms like
some of them, yes,
like A&M,
but they were
Capitol,
catering to lower.
here.
Yes, of course, but they were catering to more independent labels.
Gotcha.
You know, that didn't have as big
lower
of budgets,
rates.
lower rates.
Yeah.
And there are more and more of them popping up, a lot of them actually at some point. And I thought, wouldn't it be cool? And the reason I thought about it was like, okay, we used to do things at A&M that I thought, why are we doing this little jingle, a voiceover for this jingle? Or things like new on A&M records and tapes, da-da-da, like demo spots or whatever.
Yeah.
Why are they spending all that money to be at A&M to do this simple little voiceover?
Yeah, you could do it at
They
a
could do
smaller
it at
place.
some little studio and pay half the price probably. Yeah. I thought, wouldn't it be interesting if there was a place that people could just call up and find studios to book?
Studio Referral Service was born.
And originally I called it really shitty name, Studio Discount and Referral Service, because I thought I was offering discounts to people, and that stopped real quickly.
Let's get that out of the name.
Yeah, that was gone in 6 months. And so it became Studio Referral Service, and then the rest was sort of history. You know,
I think when I first started, some history there about me and Ellis was that when I first started, I was working for my brother Steve at what was Take One at the old Kendon. And I had met Rose and Paula and stuff because my brothers had worked at the record plant. And I was starting sort of like helping. I wasn't an assistant, but I was sort of like helping and stuff. And then I quickly figured out I was bartending at night, working in the studio in the daytime. And my brother was super cool. My brother Steve, shout out to Steve for giving me my first opportunity. He said, well, I need help booking. You'd be a great manager, blah, blah, blah. And I went and I had dinner with Rose. Rose would probably discount this if you listen to this, but I went and had dinner with Rose. And I said, I really need help. I need a leg up. And she like gave me a list of names or something or whatever. And a lot of the phone numbers were disconnected. But what I used to do back then, and what I still do, shout out to Eric Patelli at Music Connection, what I still do is I still look at those directories, Eric, and I still update my A&R people, all those people from those directories. Now they're online, but, A&R registry as well for Rich Ezra. But I would Xerox them. Right? And I would cold call the engineers and the labels, and I would tell them about the studio. And I would say, oh, it's, this room at 619 South Glenwood. You would know it as Kendon, but now it's called Take One. And then I got your number early on. And what was also happening was you were calling rooms, all the rooms, but you would call around, and when Take One opened, I think we somehow got on your radar, or I told you, or somebody reached out, or Music Connection or something, and you called, and, Ellis and I still work together all the time now, and what he does is super valuable service. The only thing I've ever said about Studio Referral Service is it's frustrating for me, having been a manager for 40 years, to have people who know me call you, and I love you, and I don't mind you making the dough, but to have people call you, and then I'm like, what the fuck? Why didn't they just call me?
And I've told you, as you know, it's easier for them to call me. And sometimes,
because you're going to find out.
And sometimes they don't think about you, even though they know you and love you. They might not be in the mindset of the moment to think, I could have called Candace.
Well, and they're busy, and what you do is your fingers do the walking for them.
Exactly, absolutely. Because if you weren't, and a lot of the labels, that's why most labels use us. It's like the A&R people go, okay, we need a room for Joe Blow, whoever it is, right? Joe Blow wanted to go to East West. But we called East West. They weren't available that day or that week or whatever it was, right? So then they call me. That happens a lot of the time.
Well, and the A&R guy looks at his assistant and says, call Ellis, and this is what we need.
Exactly. That happens a lot of the time too. Instead, of that. The first scenario used to happen a lot. I don't even know that happens that much anymore.
Did you find, after having left A&M, that the A&R people that worked there then, like the Larry Hambys or the people that were A&R guys at A&M, did they start utilizing you?
That's a great question.
Okay.
Back in that era, believe it or not, A&R people hardly booked studios or
It was
called
mainly
to book.
artist managers, maybe.
It was artist managers and producer engineer managers had become a thing like by like
Yes.
1983
Oh,
or
no,
so.
I remember.
I think it was early
You had
80s.
Moira Marie, Sandy Robertson.
It wasn't even Moira Marie. It was Steve Moyer.
Steve Moore,
And
who
it
was in
Sandy,
the Raspberries.
Yeah, and
fun
it was,
fact.
Yeah, and Sandy Robertson.
Sandy Robertson, World's End,
right.
was, and that's how I met John Porter
Right.
again.
Right, and
Changed
then
my life.
Jeremiah's old boss, partner. God, are we both going to blank?
James Phelan.
Yes, thank you, James
Yeah,
Phelan.
yeah. And I see, who's probably here right now while we're sitting here is Mike Cotto, who works with
Right,
Bennett Kaufman.
sure. Frank McDonough.
Frank McDonough.
No, Bennett Kaufman. Yes, you're right.
He works with Bennett Kaufman.
Yeah, but all those guys
Yeah.
early on, Frank and Bennett and all those guys in the earlier years,
They were Marie.
They were A&R people, a lot of those guys.
Oh, I know. Bennett was, for
yeah.
sure.
And I think
Yeah.
Frank might have been too, but they started working for Moira Marie.
Yeah.
It was Moira Marie and 3 other names or something at the time.
And Lisa Marie was Tony DeFranco's wife. Her
Right.
name was Lisa Marie DeFranco. Heartbeat, it's a love
Right.
beat.
And so then those guys went independent eventually. Frank.
Dude,
and
they
Bennett.
were. Now, I
Yeah.
will tell you this: as a young manager,
Yeah.
they were my hit list, and because never
Yeah.
before,
Right.
you always had to. When I very first started in '85 or '86, you still had to reach out direct. You had to have it. Oftentimes, you had to have direct contact for the engineer and producer, which was not easy to get.
Right.
So when the producer engineer management, and AAM, we forgot that.
Of course, yeah, of course, yeah.
When these companies came into play, when people started repping groups of producers
Right.
and engineers,
Right.
then I could just go to them, court them, have them
Right.
come out,
Of
show
course.
them the facility.
Sure, of course, yeah.
And
Yeah.
then you got 30 people.
Right. And so in the beginning of Studio Referral, these guys were all old friends of mine.
Yeah.
Okay. And
God
so it was
bless.
like, and what was great about what I did for them, okay, was they're repping producers and engineers. I was a producer engineer.
So you knew what
and
they
I
would be
knew
looking
what they
for.
wanted.
Yes, you knew what they wanted.
And I knew what room would best suit what they were doing at that time.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
For their guy.
Yeah.
So it makes their work that much easier.
Oh, like Rumbo, this room is great for this. Or
Well, it's like the perfect example is like when John Silva called me. John used to book with us all the time with his earlier bands, House of Freaks, Red Cross, bands like that.
Oh, yeah.
Right? And then one day, and he used to hang out at my office back in Studio City, back in the, whatever that was, 80.
Was it on Whitsett?
It was on Ventura Boulevard and near Whitsett, yeah,
Oh,
upstairs.
okay. Oh,
yeah.
I remember
yeah.
that.
And so he'd go next door and make copies and stuff over at ACDC, and he'd come in and hang out. And so one day he called me up and he goes, so there's this band that we're managing and they're going to come down from Seattle. They're on their tour bus and shit, and they're going to come down. And I'm flying in this producer from Madison, Wisconsin, and I need a studio for $1,200 a day.
And the answer to the question is,
And I need a vintage Neve, and I
Okay.
need high ceilings and a
Okay.
big room. That's what the producer wanted, he said. And what do you recommend? And I found and recommended a little place called Sound City
for Nirvana.
for Nirvana's Nevermind record.
With Butch Vig.
With Butch Vig, yes.
God bless.
Butch was the Madison guy, yeah.
Butch has agreed to be on the show.
Oh, awesome.
I'm excited.
It'll be
It's gonna
great to have
awesome.
him here, yeah. And so that was, one of the game changer albums that we did. Before
Yeah, it's
that,
interesting. You wouldn't think about the fact that album credits would actually help your business, but it really does.
Yeah, and I don't even know that I got credit on it. I mean, I have the platinum records and stuff, but I don't know.
No, but I
that-
don't even mean
yeah,
album credits,
yeah.
but just
Well,
something
sometimes
you
I
were
did get them.
involved, something
Yeah.
you were involved in, like people knew you had a hand
Right,
in,
exactly.
would help your
Yes.
business.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And
Yeah.
it helped those studios too, because after that,
God.
obviously, Sound City,
Oh,
which
my God.
previous to that was known as Sound Shitty for quite a while,
Yeah.
because they had like a long lull of not happening. But then after that, tons of Pearl Jam and
yeah.
Evanescence. No, not Evanescence. I'm blanking on
Everclear.
who.
I said Everclear, but no.
I don't think they were there. We did Everclear a couple of times.
I like that band.
Yeah, they're cool. But that's not what I'm thinking. Anyway, there's a bunch of groups that did shit there.
Oh,
Anyway, back then.
dude, and a lot of the young engineers that came out of there today, Joe
yeah,
Parisi,
sure.
Nick Raskulinecz,
Yeah, Jeff Sheehan.
Jeff
Yeah.
Sheehan, amazing
Yeah.
people.
And so,
I gotta get Jeff on. Jeff would be so
and Joe. Has Joe been on?
No, I haven't got to
Get
call
Joe.
I know, totally got to call Joe. He's a
So-
busy guy.
Yeah, but he'll do it, for you. So where was I with that?
So
Nirvana.
you started
Oh, yeah,
out,
yeah,
and John
yeah.
is hanging in your office.
Yeah. Well, so anyway, that was how that record happened.
Well, because you knew when he said to you, because you were an engineer, and he said, "This is what we're looking for."
Yeah, exactly.
You knew which rooms to go. Now, I have a question. Since you'd come out of A&M,
Right.
how did you have this experience with the other rooms? How did you know much about the other rooms?
I knew
Did you
about
make
the
a
gear.
point of it?
Yeah, I toured everybody.
I was going to say, you must have
back
toured.
in the early days, I toured all the studios, and I also knew all the gear anyway because I was an engineer.
Well, you knew the gear, but you have to go see the actual rooms.
Yeah, exactly.
Like Rumbo, Sound City.
Of course, yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
all the rooms and see what they had and what their positive attributes were.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. And then we had all
we
their
also had
gear
Hollywood Sound then.
Sure, of course. Yeah, there was a ton of places that are gone that were there.
Hollywood Sound. All the offshoots of Kendham, which was Artisan.
Right. Larrabee, which was
Encore.
before that was known, and Devonshire.
And the original Larrabee, where Larrabee North is now, was Davlin.
Davlin,
right?
Exactly.
And then where was the other one? There was TT&G.
TTG was in Hollywood on McCadden Place.
McCadden Place. And then what was the other one? Was not Oasis? Was there
Oasis was after it was Davlin. That was Giorgio Moroder's
I was going
place.
to say that became Casablanca's home, no?
I'm not sure, but Giorgio took it over after it was Davlin.
Okay, you're right, Davlin.
And then it became Larrabee after that.
And
Schnee was next to it.
Then the studio at the end of Barham, which was Tom Jones' studio, which was Britannia.
Right, exactly.
Became Andorra.
Exactly.
With Doug Perry.
Right. And before that, he had Smoke Tree Ranch.
Right, he did have Smoke Tree Ranch.
And before that was Smoke Tree Ranch, it was Cherokee. The original Cherokee was...
On Fairfax?
The original Cherokee was at where Smoke Tree was. In Chatsworth. It was called Cherokee Ranch. Before Fairfax existed.
Oh, fuck.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. There's a little history for
you. Doug Perry, love you. Shout out to Doug Perry. And that is now the Pass.
The Pass.
It became
the Pass.
Yeah, it became.
And then I sold it to
Yoshiki
back in not that long ago,
maybe
still
5
years
ago.
ago.
What do you call it?
No, I don't know what he calls. He's not open to the public.
Yeah, I know. We call it whatever.
Yeah, it's his place.
But then you had Bill Schnee.
Of course, you had One-on-One back then too.
One-on-One, which is reopened now, which is gorgeous. You need to go see it.
Oh, I'm friends with Steve. That he has a studio in Atlanta as well.
And Charleston, South Carolina, which is my hometown.
Yeah, exactly.
He's my homie.
Yeah.
Have you seen it recently though? I went like a week ago.
Oh no, it's been 2 or 3 months.
Oh, it's even more awesome. That's such a cool drum room.
Oh,
it's crazy.
Amazing drum room.
I shouldn't tout other studios, but this is the best studio. But if you can't come here, this is one of the best.
Well, no, I mean, the difference is, and love you, Steve, but the difference between a place like this and a place like that is that, infrastructure.
Staff.
And, well, that's what I meant by infrastructure.
Yeah.
And gear.
Yeah.
I mean, like, you can't have your kind of gear as a new studio, just coming out,
Yeah.
Granted, he's got the build out of this amazing.
Fairchilds are a lot.
Yeah, and the mics and things like that. That's hard to have unless you are a studio that's been here for 25 years.
I need more stuff.
Yeah, but
I need more mics.
I can have fetch.
But it is cool though. We've been talking. So many places have gone out of business early on, like Gold Star, and places are fucking incredible. RCA, etc.
Yeah.
And then now there are new places popping up. Both places being restored and renovated and reopened.
Some, yeah.
And then other places popping up. So there's some cool stuff. Gold Diggers is cool.
Yeah, the different kinds of scenes.
It's a different workflow.
Yeah, exactly. It's not like this. It's not really even competition to you.
It's not. No, it's
different.
Not.
Yeah.
Well, okay. Again, this is about you, but you having been an engineer, one of the things that I think we can corroborate on is the room as instrument, the acoustic space, and the difference, the difference that it makes having an engineer who knows how to use the gear, having good gear. We always say you can make a great record in your bathroom.
Right.
You can make, it's all about the song.
It's about the song.
If the song is great,
right. Yeah.
God bless.
Everything else can sort of ride.
Yeah, exactly. God bless. But what will help, will enhance, will make it better is a great engineer.
Of course, in a great room.
Great room.
That's right.
Acoustic space.
Exactly.
And
you got to have both. You can have a great room like this, and if you don't have a great engineer, it doesn't matter.
Yeah. It's hard to mess up,
Well,
Studio 2, it's hard to mess up drums.
If you've got an engineer that doesn't know what they're doing, it's not hard.
Yeah,
Especially with
we
something
don't let
like
them
drums.
in.
I'm just saying. Yeah, I'm just saying.
That's not true.
But it does happen.
Oh, no, it very...
Yeah.
Well, what's scary for me...
But luckily, you've got assistants that can help them out and make them look good.
What's scary for me is... and this is not new.
Yeah.
You and
No,
I have
this has been
seen
going on forever.
You and I have
Yeah.
seen this forever.
Yeah.
Where there are people who like fail upward.
Yeah. Oh, of
like
course.
people who suck.
Oh, of course.
And you're
yeah.
thinking to yourself, like, how the fuck did that guy
do
who
that?
didn't know what a fucking compressor was?
Right.
like,
Now become a producer of whatever the hell kind of giant
I don't know.
record.
I mean,
Yeah.
I can't say this on my podcast because I'll get in trouble and
Yeah.
I'll look bad. But there's some famous people that made some famous records that became famous record company owners who were not great engineers.
No, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, no question.
We'll leave it at that.
Yeah, totally. That's plenty of people have failed upward in this business over the years.
So studio referral service now in close to its 40th year in business, or
Beyond.
oh really? Okay, yeah.
43.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
What do you? So you're gonna keep doing it forever? Why not? It's pretty easy.
It's pretty easy when you know it like the back of your hand. But the thing is, it's shifted over the years.
Yeah.
Back in the 80s.
Yeah.
It was out of control business, when it started.
It was so busy.
It was so busy because there were no computers, there were no
Right.
cell phones.
I know.
People needed studios.
Yeah.
And they could
I had
only...
a pager pre-cell phone and had
too,
to
of
stop
course.
at pay phones
Yeah, and
to
I
respond
had
to the page.
And I was so busy. Like
Remember the early
I was
going to
say
phone?
my first phone was like £5.
Oh God, yeah.
It cost $3,000.
Oh Jesus.
And it cost $1 a minute to use.
Oh yeah, it was crazy.
Okay. And so, but I had to have it because business was constant.
Yeah.
And I mean, in those days, Bob Rock, people like that. I've been doing people like those guys since the beginning. So all the Metallica records in the beginning, Chili Peppers, Smashing Pumpkins, we did all of their records in the early 80s.
Yeah.
Okay. Because I was friends with the managers or the producers.
You probably, when I first started at Take One, there was some good overflow because Steve had worked at the record plant, my brother, and he knew, Jim Scott, and he knew Mike Clank, and God bless Mike Clank for bringing Guns N' Roses to Take One and kind of launching my career as well as launching the studio. I love you, Mike. But you probably brought me like Richie Zito or Phil Caffell. You probably brought me those people.
Yeah. Chili Peppers.
Yeah, well.
I think.
Not there.
No, not there. No, not there. Here.
No, but here.
Here.
Yeah.
Foo Fighters.
That would have been, Foo Fighters for sure. But you would have brought the Chili Peppers here when it was Ocean Way before I came here.
Right, yeah, exactly.
But when I was at Take One, and then I went to Red Zone, and then I went to Soundcastle, I did so much stuff with you. And all the studio owners, and you studio owners, all of the ones I've worked for, thank you so much for the chances that you gave me. Buddy King at Soundcastle, Dennis Dager at Red Zone, my brother Steve at Take One. Obviously, John Porter, who got me to cello, and Doug Rogers, who has me here at East West.
Pasadena.
Tina Clark. Who is my client here now. So.
There you go.
But there were times, and I won't lie, when as a young studio manager, you'd get like from your boss, you'd get like, well, why are they using Ellis? Why am I paying you? Why am I paying you? And we're paying Ellis. And I'm like, look, and this is how I've always explained it, and I stand by this.
Yeah.
It's like, look, would you rather have not made the 10 grand that we made, or the 40 grand, or the 100 grand that we made?
Right.
And paid out 10 grand.
Right, or something.
I still got to be here.
Yeah, exactly.
I still got to be here to make sure.
And you got to
make
sure that they're happy and that they get what.
I got to lock it in, and keep the gig. But would you rather not make that money? I always thought of you as like, it's not found money, but it's bookings I wouldn't have had.
Of course.
I always thought of you if I was doing my job.
Yeah.
That, I do my best, bring in as much work as I possibly could. I still call you when I'm slow.
Sure, yeah.
And say, hey, I got open time. But I figured that you would fill those slots. People used to work much longer than they do now.
Of course.
But you would fill those slots and bring me those long bookings, whatever short bookings, but you would fill those slots that I hadn't yet filled.
Oh, yeah,
and
you got a lot of rooms.
Hand.
Yeah, you got a lot of rooms to fill.
Bird in hand. Yeah.
So many rooms. It's not easy to keep them.
Dude.
Especially these days. I mean, back then it wasn't
4
that easy.
rooms.
Of course.
Talking at one point about opening another one, and I'm like, what am I doing? Like, no.
Yeah. No,
at cello, we're sitting at what was
cello. It was cello, yes.
Yeah.
And formerly United Western, for that matter.
Yeah, it was Western of United Western, Ocean Way, of course.
Yeah.
Clarice Dodge, I'm gonna see Monday, who's managed both facilities while I was still, I don't know, learning my craft.
You were at Soundcastle probably then.
I was rocking it, but I was at Soundcastle.
Yeah.
But I look back now and I think about Clarice booking 8 rooms. Dude, get a gun.
But I don't think she was.
She did, yeah. She booked
No,
both
no, no.
buildings.
Why? No, I mean she did. She
had Jack.
She administered it. Okay.
Yeah.
But I think that it was in that era.
She wasn't cold calling trying to get biz.
She was not doing. No offense, Clarice. She wasn't doing what you do.
Yeah, it's different.
You Rose. Okay.
We've run the businesses completely.
And Paula, you guys have the clients.
Yes.
Okay. I don't think she had the clients. I think people
the studio
came
had
there.
the clients.
The studio had the clients.
Yeah.
She administered the entire thing.
Yeah.
And did a good job.
And she did a great job. And she has a cool career now because she is an engineer, producer, manager.
Oh, really?
That's what she does.
Oh, that's
She
right.
did it
She
for a
manages
while.
Rafa. That's right. Yeah.
Dude, and Clark and Brent.
Clark?
Yeah, Brent
Really?
Fisher. I think so.
Oh, Brent. I think Brent. I don't think she manages
Fisher.
Clark.
Clark, call us up. Listen.
Yeah, I don't think so. Clark.
She did it
Was she?
for a while.
No.
I don't know, maybe.
Yeah. Rafa for sure and Brent. Yeah.
Yeah.
But anyway, and she has her studio espresso thing.
Yeah, she has her cool easing, which is super cool.
Right.
But yeah, she's still got her finger on the pulse, and she helps a lot of people. But yeah, you're right. I mean, it was
You
tough.
and Paula and Rose were a different animal as far as
Yeah.
what business you brought to the studios.
Yeah, I mean, for me,
You guys had the personal connections.
For me,
Yeah.
it really stemmed from a background in hospitality.
Right.
Because I had been a bartender and I had worked in hotels for a really long time.
Of course.
I had worked at Hilton, Sheraton, Hyatt. And when I was in college, when I got out, I was always worked in kitchens. Fun fact about me, I was a sous chef for quite a while and I love to cook still. But in college, I paid my way through school by being a bartender, and then I kind of elevated where I figured out, like, okay, if I want to make the most money, I have to work at the nicest restaurant, nicest bar, and then I started working in hotels, and this is the coolest thing, I moved to Greenville, South Carolina, beautiful town now, was okay then, and I worked for Hyatt, and they would sub me out. So I would go from Greenville to Charlotte. I would go to Atlanta. And I would go, and this sounds weird, it wasn't weird. I would go and I would set up a bar in a hotel room where business people were having a meeting. It could be larger, like a conference, but oftentimes it was smaller, where you were just in a suite with like 5 or 6 people having a meeting, and I would set up a bar and I would just stand there in a tuxedo. And dude, I made $50 an hour.
That's great.
And this is like 1982.
Yeah, that's amazing. Yeah.
You know what I mean? I was making bank, and I would just stand, and I got to take home all the liquor.
There you go.
Which was super cool. So yeah, but then I moved out here from Greenville, South Carolina. I'm from Charleston, but I moved out here from Greenville, and that's when I started working for my brother and bartending. And my first bartending gig was at the City on La Brea, working for Mary Sue Milliken and
really? Wow.
Susan Goyne. No, that's not. Is it Susan Goyne? Anyway, the two hot tamales.
We know what we mean. Yeah.
Yeah. It was called the City. Yeah. Now they're moguls.
Of course. Yeah.
Yeah. But I made connections bartending.
You're good still.
Yeah, I made connections bartending.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Like I would bartend, and people would come in, and I would say, "Oh, I work at a studio." You know, it's all
It's word of mouth. But
all word of mouth.
You're also a great communicator, a great people person.
Thanks.
And other people that have managed studios besides the three of you, okay, generally have not been, okay?
Yeah.
And they got by booking the places they booked
because the phone rang.
Because the phone rang and because the place had a reputation.
Yeah. And it's been interesting because
that's why you three are the queens, as they call you.
Thank you. Yeah, and Rose, the grande dame of all of us, and Paula, my favorite person. Rose, you're my favorite people ever. But I learned a lot from watching both of them, and you're right. It was just being friendly, helpful, going the extra mile to make sure the staff was on point.
And it's all the hospitality thing, which is what studios are.
Anyway, they're hotels
studios
for technology.
are hotels. And you know who brought that up originally and was very correct was Skip Saylor ages ago.
Oh, yes. I can see that. I saw him recently. I love him so much. He's got to be on here. I got to get him on here. He has a lot of history in this building. He was telling me a story. Skip Saylor was telling me a story about he was a staff assistant at Western, and I don't know who the band is. He's going to have to correct me. It might have been the Monkees or somebody else or Elvis or somebody was in doing something, and they put him on a Frank Sinatra session.
Who?
Skip Saylor as an assistant. And he was like, man, I don't want to do that Frank Sinatra session.
Right. Yeah.
I want to do that Elvis Presley session.
Sure.
And he says, what was it?
It was the Eagles.
Oh, it was the Eagles. Right, okay. It was the Eagles. Thank you. Trusty Steve is back. But yeah, it was the Eagles, and I was talking about it, he said, oh, I pinched myself later going, I work with Frank Sinatra, it's like you don't know when you come in, and still for you don't know who's going to call you on any given day.
No, never.
You
never.
could, I always tell my staff, when the phone rings, you don't know. Everybody has a freshman effort. I bring up the Frank Ocean as an example all the time because I didn't know who Frank Ocean was, and he called to do a vocal.
Yeah.
And Jeff Ellis, who is now my tenant, young mixer, who was an intern runner assistant at East West, I didn't, I said, look, you're just starting out, go in and do this vocal.
Sure.
You know, and then he became Frank's guy. And then he got a Grammy.
There you go.
And now he's my tenant. So it's awesome.
Yeah. No,
we were laughed at. I'm basically hiring and training my future clients.
Right. Well, back in the day, another old studio came to mind was Music Grinder.
Oh, God, yeah. Well, Lawrence, my chief engineer, started at Grinder.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so,
Grinder on Melrose or Grinder? Yeah, Grinder on Melrose.
The original was on Melrose. Yeah, the original. And that was two guys.
Ron Felicia and Gary Scardino.
There you go. And I had sent them a guy. They needed an assistant to work.
Okay.
And I met this guy, and he was looking to, start at some studio. And I think it was Randy Burns. Was the name.
Okay.
Do you remember that name?
Oh, yeah.
And he became he, again, started as an assistant there, became an engineer, and then became a big producer.
Yeah, there was the other guy, Randy Wine was A&M. Chad Muncie was A&M. They were all A&M, but there was the Burns brothers who worked at Oshawa.
Yeah.
The two brothers.
I just flashed on another old studio.
Who?
That Adam ran.
From Paramount?
No. In near Griffith Park, near Mad Hatter. We're talking about another old
studio.
Yeah,
near Mad Hatter.
God, it was the Chemical Brothers.
The boat.
The boat.
Yeah.
Yes.
The boat.
Who ran it? Adam?
No, it's
British engineer, producer. That we know.
Adam Mosley.
Adam Mosley.
Yes.
Ran. Exactly. That was a cool little spot too.
Dude, that's very cool.
Yeah.
And now, where did the boat end up being? Is that Flea's place now?
Yes, now it's Flea's place. Yeah.
And is it part of the Silver Lake Music Conservatory?
That I don't know. But I think
we should really get our facts straight.
Yeah, I think it became. I think he bought it because originally I had brought them there at some point.
I went in, there was an even there. It was in a state of disrepair.
Yeah. Earlier
on, the Dust Brothers.
The Dust Brothers owned it. Yeah.
Yeah.
John King
and Mike. Fuck, I don't know.
No.
Oh, someone brought up the other day that I hadn't thought of? It was Tom Rothrock.
Oh, of course.
Tom Rob Schnapp and Tom Rothrock.
Well, Rob is still around and doing stuff. I think
Tom is too, but I don't know if he's producing.
I thought he might have retired or something.
Probably.
I'm not sure. Yeah. But
super cool.
Yeah, they were a great little duo.
Dude, Beck.
Yeah, but they didn't.
They discovered Beck more
yeah,
or less.
I know. But they didn't. They haven't been together as a team for a while.
Quite some time. No, Rob was always, and then Doug Boehm came up through that same camp. Cello was kind of magical, even though it was late.
Yeah.
99, 2000 was kind of, it was 23 years ago now.
As far as people that came out of it, you mean?
It was great, the people that came out of it. Yeah. But, you were talking about Grinder.
Right.
So, Devonshire.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, I mentioned Devonshire. Yeah.
So
and
Kelly,
that's where Kelly worked. Yeah,
Kelly, who we love, who is now producer, engineer, manager.
Right, there you go. Exactly.
I work with Steve and Collie, and we're doing a lot of work. Her client is coming in tomorrow, Chris Cody.
Awesome.
Colin Britton, her other client.
Yeah, exactly.
God bless you, Kelly.
Yeah.
Thanks for keeping up the faith.
Of course, absolutely.
Calling me.
Yeah, Kelly's awesome.
But it's relationships, it's friendships, it's trust.
Right.
Those people that called you knew you could find a place, you knew what to look for.
Yeah. And they know that, I'm going to get them the best bang for the buck for what they need to do.
Yeah.
In the end. And that history repeats.
You're not a grinder, but you're looking out for your client.
Yeah, I want to make sure that they get what they want, and I don't
you find out what the budget.
I don't grind the studios. I just tell them, hey, this is what they're trying to do.
Yeah.
And I mean, the whole grinding of rates started a long time ago when Virgin was around. Virgin Records.
Are we going to thank Gemma for that? Gemma, are you listening?
Maybe. Hi, Gemma.
She was a tough cookie.
She originally was thinking way back, to when early days of Studio Referral. I remember her calling, and she was head of Virgin.
Oh, yeah.
And it was like, well, I need a room with this, and this.
And I can get it for less than that.
And I want all this stuff, and I want it for $1,200 a day. Again, that same magic number that happened to be the same number. But, and it was something along the lines that she needed of here or someplace like that wouldn't have been $1,200.
Right.
And it was like, well, that's what we have. That's what we're going to do. And it was a lot of time too. It'd be like a month or whatever back in the time.
Yeah.
And it was like, yeah, I mean, that was sort of like where.
Well, and my current owner and all the people I've ever worked for have complained about rates, and they have a right to do so, because especially in the 90s when consoles were, 700, 800 grand, a million bucks, and rates hadn't changed in 20 years. Now, my rates recently just went up, and people are cool, as has everything, and people have been cool with it because they understand that minimum wage is now, 17, 18 bucks.
And everything's gone up.
Everything's gone up. So in order for the business to make sense, but originally, I think, and I don't know if they would agree with me, when a console was, 100 grand, then you could really make good money. If you were getting $2,000 a day.
Right, of course. Yeah,
then you were paying off your console. In 2 months.
Right. But there was even before that, when the time of the whole early digital stuff, when a Sony 3348 cost
the Mitsubishi 32 track, the West Star console.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
It was so crazy, the digital consoles.
Everything was so expensive.
So expensive.
Yeah. And so, and rates back then were sort of what they are now at that most. I mean, rates were the same when I was at A&M in the 70s.
Yeah. Well, but Doug, when you listen to this, just rest assured, we are about 30% up. We are now the room we're sitting in. When I was at cello, this room was probably $1,200 a day. The book rate for this room is $2,000 a day, and I regularly get 16 to 18 for this room now.
You should.
It's a great room.
I mean, it's a historic room.
This is like great. This is the smallest tracking room, but still.
I know, but it doesn't matter because it's the history is what it's about.
And it's got an A range in it. It fucking sounds great.
But in general, going the history of 1980, let's say, to present, things have changed.
Yeah. But rates didn't go up much.
Rates didn't go up much, number one. For years and years. And they didn't really go up that much.
Yeah.
But business has changed, too. It's not the same business. I mean, back in those early days.
18-month booking, 10-month booking, 6-month booking.
6-month booking. That stuff's gone.
Yeah.
And it's like, once in a while.
I'm still doing occasional.
Once in a while.
Yeah. You hooked me up with the Foo Fighters. That was a good gig.
That's true. And I had a 1.5 year gig with a gig during COVID.
Nice. Dude, I had a 10-month gig during COVID. Thank you, Rick Rubin. Thank you, Ryan Hewitt. Thank you, Red Hot Chili Peppers, for being loyal.
Of course,
and coming in and mixing, because that kind of saved us.
Of course, yeah. And so, and that 1.5 thing saved me.
Yeah.
And it was like, but that's rare. That's like totally the exception.
Yeah.
Nowadays, the majority of things are a week, 3 days.
You know what I would say, though? If I was an artist manager and I had an artist and they said, well, I want to build my own studio. Well, first of all, to really build someplace decent, even if it's small, it's going to cost $1 million.
Yeah. To do it really right.
To do it right. So if as an artist, your studio time, I mean, it's all recoupable. You have to make the money back. But if it can essentially be a write-off in your business model, because it's like an artist using tools, paintbrushes or whatever.
Yeah.
Writing off what you can write off. If you could make your record and write off a lot of the cost of making your record, it makes much more sense to go to a commercial studio where you don't have to build it, you don't have to buy the gear, you're not responsible, you don't have to hire staff, and you don't have payroll taxes.
Not only that, you couldn't build a room like this for that kind of money.
No. Or any of these rooms.
No.
But I'm saying, that, if you're listening to this and you're thinking, oh no, it's going to be so much cheaper for my artist to build his room, think again.
Yeah, exactly.
Think again.
It never is. It never is.
No.
And it just doesn't make any financial sense to build your own studio.
It doesn't.
If you're doing something serious. I mean, it's different if you're just going to be
sitting there with a
MIDI. Yeah, you're doing a closet and you got a MIDI only kind of thing.
But even then, if you're going to drop $500,000 on gear or whatever.
Well, some people don't. A lot of people do half-assed places and they build a studio for $15,000 or $20,000. They call it a studio.
What?
And it's not. To our world, it's not a studio, but
it'll get
these
by.
Days,
you could do, but what you could do there is the vocal spots and the demos that we were talking about earlier that didn't need to happen at the big room at A&M.
Well, yeah, exactly. That same kind of thinking. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
You could do voiceover work or whatever.
Yeah, but I mean, people don't build studios to do that, I don't think anymore. Artists and producers that want to have a studio,
They just don't want to have to go somewhere. They want
Right.
to get out of bed and
Right,
roll
exactly.
over and write.
Yeah, exactly. You know, it's
Which,
just,
by the way, your wife does not want that. She does
Exactly.
not want the studio in the
or
house.
the kids.
Yeah.
And you got your dog barking in the
Yeah,
background.
what's that all about?
You know,
Suck it. Don't do it.
you can't bring people there.
Don't
you know.
do it.
Well, I mean, there's a lot of producers. See, part of what Studio Referral Service does too is find producers and artists places to buy or lease.
Oh, yeah, that's where you do a lot of your
Exactly.
business.
Exactly. And so, you know, people like, I mean, ages ago.
Dude, I so need to get hooked in on one of these deals, man.
Of course.
I'm telling you, I'm trying to figure
But
it out.
I'm saying that kind of case is like different because it's like, okay, I'm not going and spending all that dough to build a place from the ground up.
Yeah, you're leasing
I'm-
a place long term. You're
Exactly.
getting a great deal.
Right. I'm
You're
already-
writing off your rent.
Exactly, completely. And I'm already a big producer or artist anyway.
Yeah, if you don't
And-
know that you can write off that rent,
Right.
yeah, you have a bad accountant.
Right, exactly. Yes, exactly. And so it's like that kind of thing happens, and that's sort of been a new part of what we do in a big way.
You've been doing it for a while.
Yeah, I know. It's been about 10 years or so.
Yeah.
And it's like that has been a really good thing because, again, the old days are sort of over.
Yeah.
And unfortunately,
I'm
that-
still in that model, and what's happened to me, I'm in the old model of booking, but what's happened to me, instead of having to know 10 busy producers, and this has been for a while,
Right.
I have to know 50
Right.
or 60 because
Exactly.
people book a day or they book a week or
Right.
whatever.
Exactly.
And again, it takes a village. This is where the producer engineer managers help. This is where the A&R people, God bless you all.
Right.
This is where it helps.
And that's what I was starting to go to. It's like back in those early days, it was just likely.
Dude, it was like 10 guys.
Yeah, it was. It was, and luckily 3 or 4 of them were regulars all
Yeah.
the time. Like it was literally they'd call 3 times a day.
Yeah.
You know, and back in the old days there'd be 20 or 30 calls a day for gigs.
Yeah.
Nowadays I'm really happy if there's 30 or 40 calls a month.
Oh, wow. Okay.
You know, compared to
Which is why the long-term leases make sense for
Oh, of
you
course.
and everything
Yeah,
else.
yeah.
And it helps out the lessor.
yeah, and again the people calling those A&R rather the producer engineer managers, their guys all have their own places.
Yeah.
80% of them.
Yeah.
And yes, they'll come to you, like a Ross or somebody like that,
Yeah.
and do something that they need a real serious room.
Yeah.
But most of the stuff they do, they'll just do at home,
Yeah.
you know, especially mixing.
Yeah, maybe they'll come in and do a day of drums or a day of tracking with the rhythm section, and then
or,
that's it.
or
I
if you're
can see
lucky,
them
a
again.
week or something too
Yeah, yeah.
sometimes. We brought that thing with him with those people I introduced him to a while back from San Francisco or something. It was like some
I don't
Indian
know,
finance.
you sent me all
I
kinds
know,
of cool
millions
people.
of things, but there was some really nice people. I don't remember who it was, but I hooked them up with Ross, and they did the whole thing here.
Oh.
I think it was here, or was it next door?
It was at United.
Could have been.
But that's okay, and United is no longer there.
Of course,
Oh,
exactly.
heart-wrenching.
Yeah, it is. It is. Yeah.
Heartbreak. So, yeah, this is what we've learned. Use a real studio anytime you can afford it, even if it's to go in for a day or two to get your basic
To get
tracks,
it
because
right.
the room does matter. Call Ellis at Studio Referral Service. 818-222-2058. This is a number that I have
You know it
known
memorized.
in my head for like 40 years.
And how about 323-957-6969 extension 2?
Woo! That's the number for East West.
That's East West, yeah.
Our cell phones are the same for like 30 years too.
Yeah. And-
But yeah, it's so interesting to me, and we have barely scratched the iceberg of your life and your career.
Well,
But we did get that. Okay, that door's open. The car's going by. I can hear wheels turning. It's okay though. We're getting ready to wrap. If it's all right. We're getting ready to wrap. We're in a working studio, people.
exactly.
We're getting ready
Exactly.
to
It's
wrap
good.
up
People are
so we
coming
can
in for a
we can go
session.
drink more wine.
That's
and
right. Exactly. Eat some pizza.
Eat some pizza. But I could talk to you. I could do more episodes with you, and I would like to.
Sure.
Because there's a lot more that we can communicate to people. One of the things that I want to make a point of is that all of these relationships matter. Having integrity is key. You people out there who think it's okay to not be, don't steal gigs, be cool, be honest, be on the case, do your job.
Yeah.
And, for Ellis, we all get screwed over by people who don't pay us. So that's not cool. Pay us.
Yeah.
But if you want, there is no one way to get to your goal. You were going to be an architect. Then you became an
Yeah.
engineer. Now you've had this company for 40 years. And you've had have a great life and have built a wonderful life. Bought a lot of real estate along the way, very cleverly, I might add. And I certainly never thought that I'd be sitting here 35 years later almost or whatever going like, wow, I'm still doing the same thing and I love it so much.
Of course.
The
Yeah.
helping people, you like to help people, I like to help
Yeah.
people. We basically just help people realize a vision.
Exactly.
You
yeah.
know?
Yeah. And get
Set up in the right spot with the right people and kind of get out of the way.
exactly. That's what it's about.
Yeah.
Just making sure they got what they need and that they're happy.
Yeah,
You
that's
know?
it.
You can't be involved beyond that. It's like, oh, I don't like the way that vocal turned out. You guys ought to try another take. That's what got people fired at A&M when I was there.
Oh, yeah.
Sometimes we went 1 year, little detour here.
Yeah.
We went through 50 interns in
Oh, Lord.
1 year.
This comes up in almost every podcast, regardless of the person's field.
Yeah.
Is that when you were starting out, shut your mouth and open your
Exactly.
ears.
That's right.
You haven't earned the right to have an opinion.
No.
No one yet cares about your opinion. We're not saying that you can't hone your craft and that you won't be valued at some point in time.
Right.
But read the room.
You're supposed to be there, seen and not heard.
Absolutely. Read the room.
Right, totally. Yeah.
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 I mean,
so many people were out the door a week after that
I'm
kind of
not
crap. It was
nearly.
just-
I'm sure my staff thinks I'm harsh. Trust me, I'm not harsh enough.
no. I mean,
I've softened over the years.
Yeah.
Same circus, different clowns,
totally,
but
totally.
yeah,
And that was the same thing when you were assisting,
yeah,
as far as with the engineers that you'd work with.
yeah.
It's
There
like,
were guys that would fuck up and do stupid shit.
Yeah, no, but I mean the senior cats that would not. The
Yeah.
the heavies that I used to work for.
Yeah.
Okay. The Hank Sakalos, the
Oh
Dick
yeah,
Bogarts.
yeah.
all
They didn't fuck up.
if you screwed up anything, okay, you were going to work for them again.
Yeah,
You had to be the guy that was totally reliable and never fucked up.
yeah.
And that's how you got ahead.
That's what everybody wants. No one wants to go to a doctor who doesn't know what the fuck he's doing.
Yeah,
Come
but,
on.
But you're the kid down there that's running the machines and doing all the shit.
It's
and
nerve-wracking. I've always said assisting is a really hard gig.
Yeah, and it was even harder in the old days when you were the guy that had to go set up 70 musicians yourself.
We still
You know?
do it here, but we still do it in Studio One. But you just have to bite the bullet and respect that you're on your path learning.
Yeah.
And that these dues that you're paying will pan out.
Right.
Don't if you really want to do it, don't give up.
Yeah, no, yeah.
It's worth it.
Yeah.
There is
There's light at the end of the tunnel.
and there's money to be made.
Yeah.
You can have a nice life.
Yeah. Yeah. If you've got the
know.
talent that you're a writer or a composer, though, instead of just
Yeah,
an
do
engineer,
that.
do that.
Write a word, get a third.
Yeah, exactly. Residuals are a lot better than hourly.
Okay, so I think we're going to wrap this one up. I could talk to Ellis and I'm going to keep talking to Ellis. We have a wine club called Vin Audio, which is super freaking cool. The members of Vin Audio are
Clark Germain.
Ryan Uliat, Jeremiah Grabber. Okay, Clark Germain, engineer producer. Ryan Uliat, engineer producer.
Keith.
Keith Munson, engineer extraordinaire, trusty steed. Jeremiah Grabber, GPS
Management,
producer,
huge
engineer, manager.
Yeah.
Brad Gilderman, great engineer, studio owner.
Yeah.
Rob Goodchild, who's coming back around.
Really?
Yes, I think he's going to show up on the 1st.
No kidding.
Yes,
That'd be
I think so.
amazing.
I'm excited. But Rob was a guitar player, was an
Studio manager.
intern, was a runner, and then became a studio manager
United
at
next
United.
door.
Yeah, now he is at Volume in
that what it's
Inglewood,
called?
which is affiliated with 1500 or Nothing.
Yeah, I thought it.
Yeah.
I didn't know it was called Volume. I
Yeah,
thought it was-
1500 or Nothing is the school part
Right.
and stuff like that. And
Right.
you have James Fauntleroy and the other, Brody Brown.
Right. There's a bunch of them.
I'm forgetting a bunch of you. There's
Yeah.
a bunch of you. But so the Vin Audio, you see where I'm going with this, is that the people that you work with become your friends, and it's your professional life and your personal life are blurred.
Exactly. Exactly.
It becomes entwined, and it's
That's right.
one and the same.
That's right.
You know what I mean? But these are the people that you're going to spend your time with. So if you're pursuing engineering, producing, contracting, whatever it is in the music industry you're pursuing, just know that it takes all the different people doing all the different jobs behind of and in front of the glass. God bless the artist for creating music in the first
Sure.
place
Yeah.
and giving us something to do.
Exactly.
Without you, there's nothing. Without the song. But yeah, I just wanted to say thank you for being on the show.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
And yeah, we have to do another episode with
Exactly.
us.
Yeah, it'll be fun.
To see what's
Yeah.
going on. We have to. I do think we should do a Vin audio episode one day.
Set up the table here.
Yeah.
Get
We're
some
sort of
catering.
doing
We'll
this
get
now.
all the wines
Now, what
out.
did you learn today? Did you learn about this? This is a 2012 Leoville Barton Saint Julien. Do you know it? And it was bottled at the chateau. See this down here? Mise en bouteille au chateau. Bottled at the chateau. Learn your French. Learn your labels. Learn about wine. All right? It's good stuff.
It's the only way you're going to be in the music business.
That's right. That's right. Thank you so much. Signing off.
Thank you.
Good job. What time is it? How long is it?